Advanced Principles Podcast, or APP, was created to be an outlet for like-minded individuals to share in the broader conversations on leadership, retail market updates, and incredible personal success stories. On APP, you will hear a collection of stories from the titans of the retail industry, as well as thought and practice leaders covering the spectrum of the economy. Please click the subscribe button and look for the newest episodes to be released.
They say you're either born a leader or you can grow into leading.
Did that kind of start the leadership quest that you're still on today and still chasing after?
Mike Terry is the founder of the Mike Terry Auto Group, which operates several franchise dealerships in the state of Texas. Prior to entering the automotive industry, Mike spent 15 years providing exemplary service with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, where he achieved the rank of Lieutenant of Correctional Officers. Upon entering the automotive industry, Mike excelled with every opportunity he was presented, including bringing a Subaru franchise to East Texas. He acquired his first GM dealership in late 2019 and has been expanding ever since. The Mike Terry Auto Group now has multiple locations, all performing at high levels. Mike is an active member in the National Automobile Dealers Association and the National Association of Minority Automobile Dealers. He and his wife Allison have raised 6 children, 2 of which have significant roles in the dealerships. Mike lives by a motto, dream big.
All right, so on app today, we have Mr. Mike Terry from Mike Terry Auto Group. Mike, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have so much to uncover, incredible bio, different path into the car business than some, but every car story is a great story. So I'm anxious to help unpack that, get that told to the listener. So let's just jump right into it.
There you go.
Good. So you started in as a corrections officer, went to college, got a degree in criminal justice, started as a corrections officer like every other car dealer under the sun. So did you grow up wanting to be in law enforcement and corrections?
Well, yes. First and foremost, I went to college for some criminal justice, but it was after I started working and I didn't complete my degree.
Okay.
I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So my dad is a retired warden with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and also from the private sector. My stepmom retired in the corrections field. I have an aunt that retired. And so it's kind of one of those things where, this is what we do,
Yeah.
So I kind of got right into that and started doing that.
Very cool. So a lot of family influence. You were raised around it, had a sense of what that life was like and everything. So very cool, kind of followed right in the family footsteps. So that's fantastic. So what was your first position in corrections?
My first position was correction officer, officer 1. I had to go to a 2-week training, and before you actually get assigned to a facility. And then after being assigned to a facility, you got your trainings there, and then you kind of moved up. At the time, the top position as a correction officer was a correction officer 3. They since changed that. I think it's correction officer 5 now, but yeah, I made it to correction officer 3. That's your first steps.
Yeah, very cool. And what was the first location that you were at?
It's a Cofield unit. It's right outside of Palestine, Texas, in Tennessee Colony.
Okay.
And at the time, it was the largest largest facility in the state of Texas.
Was it really? Wow, unbelievable. Yeah. So is that high security, low security, kind of mid, or what was the level of offenders that you had in the facilities?
Well, actually, you had a variety of all. You had the low risk, of course, which are considered your trustees. And then, of course, you had your minimum security, you had your medium security, and you had your high security. But we also had what they call super segregation. And those are either high profile or very aggressive, offenders, and they were isolated away from even the maximum security part of it. So it's like 12 cells there that required, some extended, intense observation throughout the day.
Yeah. Wow. And how many different facilities did you serve at during your time in the department?
Three
Three.
different
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And you achieved rank of lieutenant in the Texas Correctional Department, if I'm not mistaken. So did
Correct.
that kind of start the leadership quest that you're still on today and still chasing after?
Well, not really. I guess it's, I don't know. They say you're either born a leader or you can grow into leading. I think that I was just gifted with a talent to lead, really good at listening and observing and applying, what I get. So, I mean, I was a leader at 17. I was a, shift leader at the Sonic, my
Okay.
first job. So, yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So from an early age, already had those natural leadership skills. I would imagine throughout school, then you were kind of the individual that people were attracted to just by nature. You have a phenomenal personality. You're all over everything. And that probably just gravitated and just followed you along through your career. Does that sound about accurate?
Sounds
Good.
great. Yeah, that sounds.
So you had a very successful 15-year run as a corrections officer, achieving the rank of lieutenant, like I said. And then all of a sudden you go into car sales. And that's obviously not a natural transition for everybody that's out there. What was that like? And you had a family, some people had to look at you a little sideways as you're kind of going through that decision-making process. What was that like? And how did you come to that decision?
Yeah, well, one thing, the first things first, you don't really know the level of discipline and structure that you learn working within the correctional space until you're out of it. And I had my son had just went off on a football scholarship, which is quote unquote, it's all paid for, right? But every month I'm sending money. So it's like, I have three daughters that are on deck. They're all three daughters that were in high school at the time. And I'm like, I can't pay for them to go to school and send him money, and he's on a full scholarship. So this won't work, but I had a cousin that was actually in the auto industry that he at one point worked in the correction facility. He was like, man, you just have the gift to talk to people. They gravitate to you. Why don't you try this? I think you'll like it. And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. It's not that I wasn't being compensated well. It's just that, I have 6 kids, and that 6 kids is just a little bit tough to live on that. So I gave it a shot. And of course, I went in, I started February the 15th of 2010. And I worked those 2 weeks that were left in the month. February is a short month. So we knocked out that month, and I did really well. But, it's the first month, and it always goes well the first month. Well, March followed that by a very, very good month. And I was like, okay, I have to leave the state, and I have to do this full time, because this will put me in a position to make sure that my family is taken care of education wise,
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you tried it out a little bit, still had your other position, and obviously immediately took to it. And so how comfortable were you in the role of conversing with people and doing the walk around and demonstrating the vehicle to them, and then ultimately asking for the sale? That's a big departure from what you had been doing the previous 15 years.
Yeah. And well, the biggest thing is I've been asked that a million times over my career, how was the transition from being in that field, the correction field, and going into the auto industry? Well, the biggest thing for me, in the correction field, the majority of the time, it's not that much of a pleasant conversation. Of course, the guys they're incarcerated. They're not able to go home at night and do the things. And I've been able to, build a relationship and get them to understand everything that they're supposed to have. I'll make sure that they have, and what they're not supposed to have, they just don't have it, right? Mm-hmm. But that taught me a lot of discipline and structure. I was 22 when I started. So,
wow.
As it relates to going into the car business, these are happy people. They're looking for a car, they want information on a car. So finding out the facts, just as it relates to, the corrections, I had to know the policies and procedures to make sure that things flow accurately. If they didn't, there's lives at jeopardy, you know. Well,
Absolutely.
getting in the auto industry is, if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, then you don't sell a car. This is completely different. This was really, really easy. Just know what you're supposed to know to do your job, and then connecting with people and having those conversations. That's the part that I feel like is a gift for me. It's pretty easy to do, talk to people.
Yeah, very cool. So just a month and a half in, you decided to go full time with it. And I'll back up just a little bit. How did you decide which dealership to start at and really get into the business?
Well, after having that conversation with my cousin, of course, the thought was in my head, and when we got back home, my wife and I, just listening to the radio, there was an ad on the radio hiring new salespeople for the car business, no experience. And I'm like, that's got to be God talking to me,
That's a
telling
sign.
me, here's your opportunity. I'm like, so I talked to my wife about it. I was like, what do you think? She was like, I mean, give it a shot. Worst case, you still have your other job. I mean, what's the worst could happen, right? So I got in, and I went and talked to the Pelshade group there in Tyler, Texas. They had just opened up a pre-owned super center that's located across the street from his flagship Nissan store.
Okay.
And I went to work there at the used car super center.
Wow. So, and what was that onboarding like? Did they have a structured onboarding program? Obviously, what you came from was very structured, very procedural driven in corrections. What was it like, especially going to a new store, the pre-owned super center? Was there a structured onboarding process and training to get you comfortable with the steps of the sale and how to work through the negotiations with the customer?
Yes, it was. Actually, it was very structured and very detailed. And he actually had a trainer that came in and did the training for all the new hires. And as a result of that ad that he ran, I think I want to say it was 15 or 17 people that were in that training class with me. And it was for 2 days. We started on the 15th. We trained all day on the 15th, all day on the 16th, and it was all day,
Wow.
So it wasn't just a fly through. It was a lot of information. But then, of course, you say it was only 2 days, but you had the 2 days of general information and an overlay of what goes on, and they're filling us out, we're filling them out. And then when you actually start, then you have more hands-on training. So there's another period of a week or two, depending on your progress, of additional training. And then, of course, in the car business, we train every day because, I mean, of course, if you're not growing every day, then you're dying, and things change so much. So after I got assigned to the used car super center, and the training was still ongoing, of course.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you're fortunate, I'm sure, as you know now, because not a lot of dealerships have that robust onboarding process. A lot of it's just, here's your new hire paperwork, go get it up and let's sell a car. So very fortunate that you found a group that had a structured process, had a trainer dedicated to getting people comfortable with it. And then it sounds like that training just continued each and every single day like it should. And I know you've adopted that into your stores, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So how soon into those first 2 days of training did you start to look up and say, you know what, I can see my name on one of these buildings someday, and started to have the vision of being your own dealer?
Well, during the training, the 2-day training, the trainer went over several, things, and it was all for me personally, it was all common sense, simple things. So it was like I was really comfortable from the get-go, but my vision was, man, I could put my family in position to where we won't have to worry necessarily about check to check. I mean, the traditional cycle that we're brought up in, we were able to dream outside of that cycle. But it wasn't at that point that I was thinking about, my own name on the building. It was just like the trainer set a number that you can make a month. And that was the only thing locked into my head. I was chasing that number.
You're like, I got
And,
kids in college, going to college. I got everything coming. Absolutely. I'm locked in on that number. What do I need to do? Absolutely.
yeah. And he was, and that number was like 3 times what I was making as a lieutenant. So I'm like, yeah, if I can do that, I can get them in college and I can support care of the wife and the kid at home. The kids at home.
Yeah. Good for you. So, and I would imagine that early on, as they get you through the 2 days of training, and then you're on this floor, they recognize something in you. It's not all that often that high. There's a lot of cycle in the automotive business, as we both know, and there's a lot of people that come in, they dip their toe in the water, they'll have a couple months on the sales floor, figure out it's not for them. How early on did your management or leadership team recognize something special in you, that you had a knack for this business and you were going places?
Okay, so I worked, and I guess I got promoted to sales manager 9 months into the auto industry.
Wow.
And it was at that time, the CEO at the time of that company told me that the first interview that I had with him, he made a phone call to the dealer and told him, I just hired your next manager. So
wow.
Based on that conversation, it was recognized immediately during the interview. However, I didn't know that. I didn't even know anything about this industry. I was just, like I said, I heard that number, man, and that was all I was focused on.
You were running at it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And I would imagine that you made that number a reality pretty quick into your career. That motivation just never went away for you.
2 months in, I got there. So
yeah, good for you. That is so cool. So you go into management 9 months in. Now another thing that's unique a little bit about your story is you spent your entire automotive career with one group. Now you and I both know that that's highly unlikely, especially in today's environment, where it's almost every 18 months people are switching stores, regardless of the opportunities that are presented to them. So you had a group that identified something special in you, although they didn't cue you in right away, but then they kind of developed and fostered you. And obviously you performed and exceeded their expectations and were promoted along the way. Were you assigned a specific mentor? Did you have kind of a team that was working with you? And who was your go-to resource to ask all the questions that I'm sure started to burn in on you as you were starting to earn those promotions and moving up in management and leadership?
Well, as I got into the management role, of course, enforcing the structure and the processes that are carried out on a daily basis was a natural for me because I've been in management for so many years. And as I got those things lined out and showed my dedication and commitment to the company, the owner himself actually took a good interest into mentoring me and provide me with information and different avenues to take to be a successful dealer. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of resources available for you out there, but there's a lot of those resources that are not openly available, and rightfully so, because I run in and talk to people all the time, and their goal and ultimate goal and dream is to be a dealer. Unfortunately, it's not for everyone, and there are some things you have to have from a natural standpoint to be a dealer. And that's not knocking anyone. It's just that a lot of times you can't see it. Like I told you, I didn't know that I had that. That was recognized by a proven, very successful dealer, recognized that. I didn't know. So as he educated me, mentored, and basically spoon-fed information as I needed it and as I could handle it, he personally saw that I could do that before I did. Of course, before I did, he had the experience.
That is so cool. It is amazing. There are so few people that grow up wanting to get into the automotive industry, but the automotive industry provides a pathway to people to realize their dreams. And it's incredible to have dealers like that still in our industry. And I know you are now paying it forward with your stores. and recognizing the talent pool that is out there. But you're right. It's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that pull up every day and they're like, hey, I see how easy the dealer's life is. They come in at 10, they leave at 2, cashing big paychecks or whatever. I can do this someday, but they're not wired. They're not wired for the grind. They're not wired for the risk. They're not wired for the mentoring and the coaching and the 24/7 job description that comes along with that. So, it's great that you had someone that recognized that in you and were able to pour that into you and helped you along in your career to kind of, I would imagine, set you up for where you're at on your journey today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. For sure.
So you were at the Super Center and then you worked your way up from sales manager to general sales manager, all within the same group. And then you had the opportunity to take over a franchise store and move over from a pre-owned Super Center to a franchise store and really take over the full operation of the dealership, front, back, training, motivating, hiring, all departments instead of isolated departments within the store, financial budgets, marketing, everything. And that's a big transition, regardless of the years of experience, especially when you're working with a franchise guidelines. And were there any nerves in there? Had you already kind of paved your path and said, I know I can do this?
Well, the confidence has always been there. And I'll tell you that, and I've said this a million times, there's only 3 times I felt like I've worked since I've been in the car business. And that was the 3 times that I went through buy sales. You actually have to put in some work mentally and not so much physically, but there's a lot of mental work involved in that. The day-to-day talk, our job consists of talking to people, man. And the processes are there. The roadmap is there. If you can communicate effectively with people and be transparent, then it's not a job to me. And I don't say that lightly in a disrespectful way at no means. It's just easy work for me.
Yeah.
So I can say that as I navigated through the Super Center part, transforming over to the franchise part, it was actually at the same store. So
okay.
And the dealer told me, we worked on it. He was like, man, at some point I will get a franchise point here for you. Just hang in there, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job with it. He was super supportive and we were actually awarded a Subaru point. And of course, Subaru was new to that market. And it was across the street from our Nissan store, same place, which has trucks. The Chrysler Ram store, Dodge store was next door to us, which has trucks. And the GMC store was next door to that store, which has trucks. So we're getting this new franchise, right? That's new to the area. And you don't have a truck, and you're in East Texas. So the odds were stacked against us on this deal. But
absolutely.
Yeah. But there's and I think at the time, I think it was like 253 units in operation for Subaru in that entire market when we got it. And so the odds were stacked against us, but at the end of the day, we have our policies, our process. We have good people. The dealer has us well trained and he's supportive. We understood what we were up against, and we just got in and went to work. And as far as it relates to the franchise side of it, yes, there's a lot of franchise laws, rules, and regulations that they require, and to participate with and be a partnership with them. But for us, he had never owned a Subaru, so Subaru was new not only to me but to him and our entire company as well.
Yeah.
So learning and figuring out the do's and don'ts of Subaru, I think that helped me advance a lot faster because I had to learn all the top level as well as what the sales guys and the sales managers need and require. So it was a lot, but it was fun to me, and for me it was easy.
What a great, as I'm sitting back and listening to that story, and thank you for providing that level of context. It's Subaru car market. They have a total loyalist customer base, and you're in the heart of truck country. There's no question. But for you, through your progression, you take on a franchise, you add a point that's new to the area, not well known in the area, and to be able to walk through that, just what an incredible learning experience. I would think, looking back, you got to be grateful for the opportunity to onboard that new point with a new manufacturer so you could trace those steps from start to finish. And I got to imagine that you're tapping into those reserves every now and then on your now venture as you've taken on a couple new stores and opportunities. That had to be just a great learning experience for you.
Absolutely. And the things that I was actually responsible for and able to learn through that process, because in our group that I work for, of course, with it being a new brand to the market, new brand to us, no trucks. So my store at that time that I worked for actually sold the least amount of cars out of our groups, and of course made the least amount of money. But the learning experience and the knowledge that I obtained outweighed the entire deal for me. I think that was the biggest achievement that I got out of it, the knowledge, and I think I have to attribute that to the dealer, because his patience and his vision on that roadmap that he had it already visualized and laid out, and I had no knowledge of it, because you don't know what you don't know. But as I needed it, I was fed that spoon, and I got it. And one thing that he's always said, he's always told me, he said, "Mike, you're a grown man." And when someone say that, it's like, of course I'm a grown man, but in the sense of understanding how to be an adult in each situation, slowing down and getting a full understanding of what's going on with whatever the case is at the moment, that's what he saw in me. And he helped me out a great deal with bringing that out.
It's just, it's exceptional. And I think for your regard, to stay true to that process. And I'm sure that there were times that you could have jumped, you could have gone to another dealer group, probably chased a larger paycheck, maybe a franchise GM title earlier on in your career. But it really sounds like, you and that dealer were brought together for a very specific reason. Your patience in the process, being a procedural driven person, really paid off and allowed you to form those deep level relationships and understanding, maybe a little bit of sacrifice along the way, but now really help put you in position for what we're going to start to talk to is the day you did venture out and put your name on the front of a couple of buildings. So kudos to you for being professionally patient throughout all of that and sticking with it.
Well, thank you very much.
What an interesting story, coming from a criminal justice background to quickly rising through the ranks in the automotive industry. Next week, we discuss more about leadership and some of the obstacles Mike overcame within the industry. You can find App on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and our website. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.